Abraham Lee Shakespeare was born on April 24, 1966, in Lakeland, Florida. He had a difficult start to life, dropping out of school after the 7th grade, which left him unable to read or write. He then went on to a life of petty crime, spending time in prison for various burglaries, before eventually straightening himself out and beginning to work odd labouring jobs in order to support himself. Abraham soon had his first child, a son called Moses, with his on-again, off-again girlfriend Antoinette. Another reason for him wanting to get his priorities in check. Abraham and Antoinette eventually decided to end things for good, but Abraham ensured that he would remain a constant father figure in his son's life. Abraham was also particularly close to his mother Elizabeth, who had only good things to say about her son. In November of 2006, Abraham was working as a truck driver's assistant for a food delivery company. On November the 15th, during an overnight food delivery trip, Abraham and his co-worker, Michael Ford, were headed towards Miami when they stopped briefly at the Town Star convenience store in Frostproof to buy drinks and cigarettes. Michael got out of the truck and asked Abraham if he wanted a soda. Abraham instead asked Michael to buy him 2 lottery tickets. He paid Michael for the tickets out of the $5 that he had on him that day. Little did Abraham know was that he had just become the owner of the winning ticket of the Florida Lotto jackpot. Abraham won the $30 million jackpot, and having had the choice of annual $1 million payments or walking away with a lump sum of $17 million, Abraham chose the latter. From this point on, instead of feeling like he had the world at his feet and being left alone to enjoy his winnings, this kick-started a brutal chain reaction, whereby those closest to Abraham would eventually turn on him and lead Abraham to call a lottery win a curse. This had first begun when Michael Ford, the co-worker who had purchased the lottery ticket for Abraham, approached him demanding a $1 million share of his winnings. When Abraham refused, this prompted Michael to sue his former co-worker and allege that Abraham had actually stolen the lottery tickets out of his wallet. The jury, however, did not believe Michael Ford's stolen lottery ticket story, and Abraham prevailed in the courts. Despite such a life-changing amount of money being won, Abraham chose to remain somewhat grounded with his winnings. He moved out of his working-class neighbourhood in Lakeland, Florida, and into a gated community. Several months after his lottery win, apart from purchasing a $1 million home, his only other major purchases included a Nissan Altima and a Rolex watch that he bought from a pawn shop. He also put aside $1 million in a trust fund for his son. Despite wanting to remain sensible with his money, Abraham was becoming more and more frustrated with the constant appeals for money from both hangers-on and strangers. He had already shared his generosity by purchasing homes for his cousins and by also helping his friend Greg Smith, a local barber, pay for a business loan worth $87,000. He once told his brother, "I'd have been better off broke." And he even went on to tell a childhood friend, "I thought all these people were my friends, but then I realised all they want is just money." Frustrated and in need of help managing his money, when Abraham was eventually approached by a local successful businesswoman claiming that she didn't have any interest in his money, but instead wanted to help him manage his finances as an advisor, Abraham was more than happy to allow her to do so. This woman would later become known as Doris Moore, otherwise known as Dee Dee. Dee Dee soon got to work setting up a company under Abraham's name entitled Abraham Shakespeare LLC, giving herself full control of the firm's funds. She suggested to Abraham that he not leave his house to avoid those wanting a piece of his wealth. This eventually resulted in Abraham isolating himself in his large home. Unbeknownst to Abraham was that Dee Dee subsequently withdrew $1 million and had bought herself a Hummer, a Chevrolet Corvette, and a truck before eventually going on a luxury vacation, all paid for courtesy of Abraham's lottery winnings. Dee Dee later claimed that this money had been a gift from Abraham. On November the 9th, 2009, Abraham's family reported him missing, stating that they had not seen him since April of that year. Family and friends had originally hoped that he had taken his money and was living on a beach in the Caribbean Sea. When questioned, Dee Dee stated that she had helped Abraham leave town because he was fed up of the constant requests for money. She gave many potential destinations where Abraham could be, claiming that he had gone to Texas, Jamaica, Puerto Rico, or Orlando, Florida. At one point, she had even claimed that he was sick in a hospital, but couldn't give information as to which one or why.
I think that you're a cold-blooded killer. No, I hope you're not a cold-blooded killer.
I have not killed him.
I hope he's not even dead.
He's not. Because he wanted to pretend that he was dying of AIDS so that he doesn't have to pay child support and people won't look for him if he's dying of AIDS.
What?
It was a videotape of him having sex with a 14-year-old girl. My family's being affected. My mom's got heart problems. She's over my house right now cleaning for Thanksgiving. My own parents were scared to come to my house for Thanksgiving.
Why?
Because of all this stuff happening.
Well, how do they know about all this stuff?
Because I'm honest with my family.
I honestly can't look at you and believe a word that's come out of your mouth. You have lied and lied and lied.
Michael Ford, who had attempted to sue Abraham over his winnings, was at one point considered a suspect in Abraham's disappearance. But after being questioned by police and denying any involvement, authorities later determined that Michael Ford had been in Georgia at the time of Abraham's disappearance. At Christmas time in 2009, Abraham's mother had received a phone call from a private number. On the line was a man claiming to be Abraham, but mother's intuition told her that this caller was not her son. She reported it to detectives who managed to trace the call. The call had come from Greg Smith, the barber who accepted the $87,000 loan from Abraham. Investigators tracked the phone to a busy shopping mall parking lot, and whilst waiting to find Smith amongst hundreds of cars, they were surprised to see another familiar face pull in. It was none other than Dee Dee Moore. They followed Dee Dee as she pulled her car alongside Smith's. She then got into Smith's car and handed him a wad of cash. Authorities later tailed Smith and pulled him over. Smith cooperated, claiming that Dee Dee had paid him to make the phone call to Abraham's mother. After being questioned by police, Smith had seemed genuine in not knowing anything about Abraham's disappearance and offered up his full cooperation in helping the police. Smith agreed to place a wire in an empty energy drinks can and drove to the gas station to meet with Dee Dee. Once here, she told him that she was being blamed for Abraham's disappearance, but would pay for someone to take the rap for it.
I only been talking to you because I'm trying to find Abraham.
Exactly. Well, hey, I'm all in, baby.
I feel like if Abraham was okay, he would contact me by now because he transferred all that stuff into my name, and then he was supposed to leave and, not come back for a while.
This was enough for investigators to obtain a warrant for her phone records. Upon examination, they found that after Abraham's disappearance, the only calls and texts from Abraham's phone were made to Dee Dee. Compared with Abraham's phone records, Dee Dee's cell phone had pinged from the same cellular towers as Abraham's. Under the guidance of detectives, Smith called Dee Dee and said he had a solution to her problem. Smith brought a man that he claimed was his cousin to another meeting with Dee Dee. This cousin, however, was an undercover cop. During a conversation, Dee Dee finally admitted that Abraham was indeed dead and that somebody had shot him. The undercover cop said that he would go to prison for Abraham's disappearance if Dee Dee paid him $50,000 and provided the location of Abraham's body, claiming that he needed his story to sound credible to detectives. Dee Dee agreed and claimed that Abraham had been shot to death and she knew exactly where his body was.
And what do you want?
50 grand.
Can I do it in payments? Because I don't have that kind of cash. I'm going to have to sell something.
I'm going to need 10 up front. Once I do this, make sure my boy get the money.
And see what I do is I get it and give it to his mom.
Later that evening, she requested to meet with Smith alone at a gas station. From there, she drove Smith from Lakeland to Plant City, where she'd recently purchased a house. She led him to a large cement slab in her backyard and said, "Tell your boy to dig 6 feet down and you'll find Abraham's body." She also handed Smith the murder weapon, maintaining that she had got the gun from the unknown person who had shot and killed Abraham. On January the 25th, 2010, authorities found the remains of Abraham Shakespeare exactly where Dee Dee said they were.
The media will not leave, and this is an intrusion on all my neighbors, and they don't deserve any of this. They're saying that I took a gun, put it up, and killed another human being, and I would never, ever, ever do that. The situation and how it went down, I wouldn't believe myself. I would say, lock her up. I would, but there's always two sides to every story. There's always more to any situation. God up above knows I didn't shoot that man, and that is the only person I have to answer to.
Sadly, any hopes of Abraham being found alive had now been dashed. After conducting a thorough search of the property, Abraham's body was eventually found buried under 9 feet of dirt, under a newly constructed concrete slab. He had been shot to death. He was just 42 years old. After police found Abraham's body under the concrete slab in the backyard of the home that she had put in her boyfriend's name, Dee Dee told police many different versions of what had happened to Abraham. She first blamed drug dealers, then a lawyer, and eventually even her 14-year-old son, before later claiming that she had killed Abraham herself in self-defense. Soon after Abraham disappeared, Dee Dee, who was living in his house, kept using his cell phone and sending text messages to friends and relatives as though she were the deceased man. Recipients were suspicious, however, because they knew that Abraham was illiterate. When people texted Abraham's phone back with questions that could not be answered by Dee Dee, no response was given. During the same time that Dee Dee was trying to make it appear as though Abraham was still alive, she had tried to find a person who would take the blame for his death in exchange for $50,000. She had also offered to pay someone to dig up and move the body to another location. Police took Dee Dee into custody on February the 2nd, 2010, in connection with the murder of Abraham Shakespeare. A judge set a $1 million bond, and on February the 19th, 2010, Dee Dee was arrested on a charge of first-degree murder. Dee Dee, whose full name was Doris Donegan Moore, had been born in 1972. She had been married to James Moore in 1992 and had a son born in 1995. In 2001, Dee Dee was convicted of insurance fraud and falsely reporting a crime after she had pretended to have been kidnapped, sexually assaulted, and carjacked just so that she could keep a vehicle that was in danger of being repossessed after falling behind on the payments. Investigators claimed that she had taped her own wrists and threw herself from someone else's car. She had even taken a rape exam. She later pleaded no contest to the charge and received probation. She had gone on to file for bankruptcy in 2002. Property records show that Dee Dee's company, American Medical Professionals, had bought Abraham's home. Dee Dee told investigators that she had paid Abraham $655,000 for his house and paid $185,000 for outstanding loans to others. However, there is no evidence to show that she paid anything at all. It was also discovered that Dee Dee had offered the mother of Abraham's son a $200,000 home if she agreed to lie to detectives and tell them that she had recently seen Abraham. She also paid $5,000 to a relative of Abraham's to give his mother a birthday card and imply that it was from him.
She wanted me to call Abraham's mother and tell Abraham's mother that I was him.
But now Dee Dee
On December the 10th, 2012, Dee Dee Moore was convicted of first-degree murder for the killing of Abraham Shakespeare.
This was the sketch that she made. Digging down 3 foot and in, and I would see a white substance that was in the ground. And once I get to the white substance in the ground, I would see his body.
And sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, with an additional minimum sentence of 25 years for possessing a gun in the course of a violent felony. After Abraham's death in June of 2017, Antoinette Andrews, the mother of Abraham's son, won $1 million on a $20 Monopoly scratch card. Antoinette's eldest son confessed that his mother has a gambling problem, with her spending up to $100 a day on scratch cards. Antoinette has admitted that she's scared about going public after what happened to Abraham, but is also excited to begin spending her winnings.
I think people are complete idiots that think I had anything to do with it.
She claims that there are witnesses who support her version, that a mysterious drug dealer killed Shakespeare.
This is stuff that's not in my discovery. These are witness statements. You understand
These
that?
witnesses don't exist, and that certainly looks like your handwriting.
What do you mean?
That looks like your handwriting. What you said were witnesses. No, it looks like your handwriting.
If you did not kill Abraham Shakespeare, who did?
If I knew that, I don't know. I know there's people out there that do know what really happened.
You had absolutely no idea that Abraham had been murdered, buried underneath concrete in your backyard.
It was money. It was money. We buried money.
You thought money was being buried.
There is perfect evidence to prove what I'm saying. When the money was buried, we wanted concrete over it so that water wouldn't get into it, because he's going to leave it there for a while. He's going to go away, and when he comes back, we want to be able to dig it up.
I've really honestly haven't met people who bury money in the backyard.
No, you will. After this show, people will come forward. They won't tell you where it's buried, but they're going to tell you, because there's plenty of people out there.
You get tired of people asking you for money all the time, Abe? Give me your opinion on it.
I've been to a year ago.
You're just ready to start living your life, huh?
They don't take no for an ounce or so.
So where do you want to go to?
It don't matter to me. I'm not a picky person.
Well, are you going to miss your home?
Yep, I miss it, but life goes on. Really would like my old life back where I could walk the streets like a normal person.